Welcome back, my artists. Today we're going to be talking about artist block and some different techniques for generating ideas. We're also going to be reinforcing what we talked about with our last lesson on doing thumbnail sketches and palm sketches. First, I want to show you a clip from a video that I have produced where we're talking about artist block.
I know there's a light switch somewhere down here.
Illuminating Ideas.
Artists of all ages run into the same basic problem. What is it that we should be making artwork of? We all have a natural tendency to make artwork, and we hit a point where we want to create the artwork. We want to have creativity, but sometimes that's hard when you think about all of the pressures in life. Things like food and shelter and sleep. Things like our schools and our societies and time logs and money, all the things that you want to learn that you haven't learned yet, all the relationships and partnerships and friendships that you have in life. Our brain is preoccupied with keeping our body in shape. And then, of course, we have all those things that distract us, all of our entertainment. Not to mention, we have a couple of just random thoughts and questions thrown into our brain for good measure. The problem isn't when you're having one or two of those things going on in your brain at the same time. The problem is when you have all of them going in your brain at the same time.
All those thoughts and responsibilities and happenings in your life sure don't make it easy to concentrate and do artwork.
When this happens, it can cause what we call burnout. And if you've ever experienced burnout, you know that afterwards, your brain isn't able to hold much of a thought anymore. At least not for a while.
I like turtles.
You can tell when you're close to burnout because you hit a certain point where your brain is just rushing. It's thinking of 10,000 things all at the same time. It's like you have a hamster wheel just spinning in your brain and it won't slow down. You may want to make artwork, but right now you have a bad case of artist block. The problem is this. We know that we want to create something. And we think that in order for us to create something, we need to have creativity. And in order for us to have creativity, we need to feel creative. That, my friends, is a rabbit hole of problems. And it can lead to even more artist block than you had before. Feeling creative isn't the important part. And creativity isn't even the important part. Think of it this way. You don't wake up first thing in the morning and think, oh, I'm ready for that hike, or I want to go practice sports, or I want to read through this book, or I want to go work out. You definitely aren't thinking about the homework on top of homework on top of homework on top of homework that you have to do. No, your mind is more preoccupied most of the time on phones, televisions, and video games. Things that are, well, fun. But are they fun? I mean, are they always fun? I myself play a lot of video games, and I can't tell you how many times I've been sitting there pounding on the A button and the right trigger, frantically trying to get some crazy achievement, and it gets to a point where I'm actually pretty darn frustrated.
No!
Or I've been sitting in front of the TV doing some monotonous task like fishing in a video game for hours just to unlock some new achievement. So no, sometimes the things that we call fun aren't always fun. So why do we do them? Because they're rewarding. Why do we do those jobs that maybe we don't want to do? Well, maybe we're getting paid. Why is it that sometimes we do well in a class that maybe we don't care about as much? Because we're getting a diploma. These are rewards. And rewards act as an incentive to do things that might have been fun, started to feel like work, but those incentives, those rewards keep you going. Perhaps the biggest reward is the feeling that you have when you feel that you've accomplished something, especially if it's something important or meaningful. When we were itty-bitties, we did all kinds of crazy things for fun. And the arts very much were fun as a child. But as you got older, this part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, it dictates logic and reason, and it developed. And when it developed, it put up this alarm system. It made it so that you were more critical of what you were doing. You were comparing what you were doing to what other people were doing. You were comparing what you were doing to something that wasn't even the same. Maybe you were trying to draw from a photograph, and no matter how hard you tried, that drawing just didn't look like a photograph. Well, it wasn't meant to. It's meant to be a drawing, not a photograph. That stress that our prefrontal cortex creates, that makes things like the arts feel more like work than fun. But something feeling like work isn't a bad thing. In fact, when we work at something, it helps us to grow. When we put time into something, it helps us to mature and it helps to keep things more interesting. As an artist, one of my favorite phrases is creativity is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. You may have the greatest idea in the world, but if you're not willing to put in the work and the time to grow that creativity, it's meaningless. But taking that first step, it's hard because what's in front of you is that apathy. It's that feeling that you've got that roadblock. And the real question is, how do you get past that roadblock? How do you get past artist block? Well, my artists, whether your brain has a hamster running frantically, is completely empty right now, whether your prefrontal cortex is telling you that you just can't, or whether you're just experiencing burnout, trying these 8 methods to get yourself back into making and enjoying art really can help.
All right, my artists, if you want to watch the rest of that video, you can totally check it out on the YouTube page. Otherwise, we're going to take you through the animal, place, and action process right now, and then we're going to work on some thumbnail sketches and a hand sketch. So let's get started. Today, we're going to go over the animal, place, action method of generating ideas. There's 2 ways that we can do this. The first one is we simply name an animal. That can also be a person, a place where it's at, and what's happening with that animal in that place. So I'm going to keep this super simple. I'm going to say the animal is me, Mr. Morris. The place, we'll say my classroom. And what's happening? I'm giving a speech. Simple, straight to the point. Now you can also have fun with this. So I'm going to list a couple animals. Simple, straight to the point. I have an animal, a place, an action. Now I have an image I can create. If you want to do it the second way though, it just takes a little bit longer. I'm going to name several animals, several places, several actions. You can name as many of these as you want. You can get as creative as you want or as simple as you want. I like to keep these a little bit basic to at least start with. So if you notice, I don't have anything too crazy on here: giving a speech, dancing, flying, falling, sword fighting, jumping. Under place, I put down classroom, space, ruins, the Circle K, a highway, a field. Mr. Morris, an elephant, an alien, a bullfrog, George Washington, and a cat. From here, if I've got some dice, I can label these 1 through 6, roll those dice, and that'll select which one of these I'm going to need to do. Then I'll do the same thing here and the same thing here. So maybe this time I get a 3, so I got an alien, I roll again, I get the Circle K. So an alien is in the Circle K, and what is it doing? I roll again, and it is falling. So in this situation, I now need to think about how is this alien falling into a Circle K? Maybe I make it more of a comic strip. Maybe I turn it into just this crazy image of it beaming down, or maybe it fell out of the window of its spaceship and it came crashing through the ceiling. This is where my imagination can kind of kick back in and have fun with whatever it is that I'm trying to depict. From here, you want to go into your sketchbook, and this is when you're going to start up your thumbnail sketches. Now, before we talked about what a thumbnail sketch is, but today we're also going to introduce a new term, which is a hand sketch. Whereas thumbnail sketches are the size of a playing card or smaller, hand sketches tend to be about the size of your hand down to the size of a playing card. The function of these is to basically take an idea that was a thumbnail and get a little bit more into it. Instead of it just being about the shapes and the basic value placements, you're thinking about more of like the more basic details. You're not worried about like individual strands of hair, but you might be worried about what direction the nose is pointing or the profile of a face. You might be more concerned about certain patterns and different repeating aspects of the artwork. A hand sketch is meant to help refine an idea before it becomes an actual artwork. So here we see some hand sketches leading up to a preliminary drawing, and the preliminary drawing then leads to the actual artwork. I've got my little scene, and now I'm going to think about how is this alien falling in. I'm not even really worried about what the alien looks like yet. I'm just worried about having something that looks like it's falling in. So the first one I'm going to do is I'll just have, say, oh, these lines represent the creature, it's falling in. I'll use this stick figure, but instead of giving it 2 arms, I'm going to give it 4 arms, and I'm going to have its legs floating up. It's going to be falling into the picture. Again, really basic stuff. I'm going to have, I want the cashier to be standing right here. I want his counter to be here, so I know that the register is going to be up. Maybe he's got some of those plexiglass shields. So I've got the rows with all the candy bars on it, and maybe I've got a shelf up close. Some products are hanging off of it. I use a little bit of my 1-point perspective, have the shelving going back. So this is giving a basic composition of how I might want the scene to be. And from here I can decide, okay, well, I want the alien to be dark. I want it to really stand out from a white background. We'll say that maybe this is the white wall, and I want that cashier to also stand out. So I'm going to give them maybe a dark hood or dark hair, and I want there to be some shadow over top of the candy. I want these shells to really stand out from each other. And maybe I want to darken up this side just to add in some effect. I'm going to play around with how the image would have dark and light. Just like the drawing where we did high contrast, I'm just thinking about how to block in that light and dark. So that's my first idea. My second idea, I'm going to have it be from the alien, its face, it's surprised. There's this little stick figure body. It's got these little tentacles, and we're going to do an overhead view. So here I'm going to have maybe some of those shells in the Circle K, and they've got the product sitting up on them. And maybe over here I've got like maybe the Slurpee machine, so that someone would recognize this as a Circle K. Don't be afraid of labeling things in your image. If you want to put down little notes to remind you what these little scribbles are, go for it. In this case, I want my floors to be white, and so I'm going to have my alien, maybe this time I have my alien in a dark suit. So now I have the same scene, but shown in 2 different ways. So from here, I'm going to keep on filling these out. I'm going to do 10 thumbnail sketches, but I want to make sure I leave an area about the size of the palm of my hand, about like that. Again, I'm not worried about drawing this in super dark. I'm not worried about tons of detail, but I am going to have an area about the size of the palm of my hand in the corner, or about 1/4 of a sheet of paper. All right, so I've developed these 10 different ideas, and essentially what I did is I just kind of pictured what's happening in the scene, and then I think about where would the best angle be to show this. So in the first one, the alien's coming down and you see the sales clerk, and I thought, well, I kind of like that. I like that the sales clerk is involved in it, but I don't really like how the alien's going to look coming down between the aisles. So then I thought about showing it from above, where the alien's coming straight down, and I kind of like that, and that kind of led on to me showing the aliens falling out of the ship itself, and we're seeing the Circle K way down below. But I keep on going back to, I kind of like the idea of seeing the alien falling sideways. So I try showing Circle K from the outside, the alien's falling down, and I thought, I kind of like where that's going. So I'm going to try that again, but a little bit further zoomed out, and I want to show the UFO. So I've got now the alien, and it's coming down, the UFO's up above, and I kind of liked this kind of desolate look that I made in this image. I kind of like the idea that the Circle K is in the middle of nowhere. So to emphasize that, I kind of played around with that a couple more times, showing the Circle K more and more isolated, the UFO larger and larger, and showing the strangeness of this alien, this object falling down from this UFO onto the strange little unassuming, isolated Circle K. Go with your feelings when you're making thumbnail sketches. Go with your feelings and let your imagination just kind of take over. Again, I like to take myself and try to put myself into the position as like a floating camera, and I'm thinking about where would I like to position my camera to best depict the scene that I have frozen time on. Now, once you have one idea that you really like, or at least like more than the others, now it's time to further develop it. And to do that, we need a hand sketch. So this is going to be kind of like the thumbnail sketch. It's still going to be loose. We're still going to block in our lights and darks to some degree, but with the hand sketch, we're getting into a little bit more detail. Again, I kind of like this idea of seeing the strangeness, the juxtaposition of the UFO, the alien falling, and the Circle K that's isolated. So I'm going to go with that idea, and I'm going to have to turn this because I want to show that vertical falling in this. This is a good time to also start kind of considering more of maybe you should access some images of whatever it is that you're trying to draw. This would be a good time for me to pull up a picture of a Circle K, for instance. Here's also a time where I might want to start thinking a little bit more about the alien itself, what it might look like.
So throughout these sketches, I kind of liked how I had these long arms that look more like tentacles. So I'm just going to go with it. I'm going to make it so it has a head, but maybe it's got a weird kind of curvy, more squid-like body. I'm going to give it a couple different tentacles. I like that it's got like 4 crazy tentacles for legs. It's got 2 tentacles there. And you know what? We're going to give it a couple tentacles just for its head itself. So it just looks like this falling pile of vines or something crazy like that. I like the idea of this being a nighttime image. Again, I think about that store clerk working late at night when something weird like this happens. I want the building to look darker so that those windows stand out, so that when my viewer views this, they're going to at first see, okay, the sign lit up for Circle K, and then they're going to see the person standing inside of the Circle K, and then they might see the spotlight and that it's nighttime, and then throughout that darkness they're going to see that alien silhouette coming down. It's going to help draw the viewer into the image. So I need to just kind of in the background think about these little tiny things. Think about what might make this interesting as an image, as that still shot that I've frozen time on and I can move my camera around. This is essentially all the hand sketches. You can get more detailed than what I've done. I wouldn't get too much less detailed than what I've done. It's basically zooming in on your thumbnail that you preferred. From here, I would typically do this a couple more times. I'm not going to have you do that for this assignment. For future assignments, won't be surprised if I have you do maybe 4 or 5 of these hand sketches in slightly different ways until you find the right image that works to depict whatever it is that you are wanting to depict. Believe it or not, I'm using the principles of design with every one of these. Depending on how I move things around, I'm changing the scale. I might be changing the balance. I might be changing the contrast. I might be changing the emphasis. Here the emphasis is more on the Circle K than it is on the alien, versus here it's very much on the alien and not on the Circle K. I might be changing the movement. I have the alien, it's falling. I'm showing that movement. I might be changing the rhythm of things. So I've got the flying saucer, and I've got the alien, and I've got the Circle K. I've got boom, boom, boom. I've got this lateral movement, this rhythm to it. The way the image is just tying together here, I have the pump to help draw the viewer in. I have the viewer being drawn up whole to the alien, which is a type of movement, but it also helps to show that harmony. And last, I'm thinking about how I'm using a negative space to make the Circle K feel more isolated. I'm using my principles of design without even necessarily consciously thinking about it. You are also, you just may not realize it yet. And pretty much as we go over these principles of design, all we're really doing is we're really just talking about doing what we already do, but now giving it a name. So there you have it, artists. It's a pretty simple, pretty quick studio today, but it's going to help set the stage for me having you make artwork that means something to you or that you have brainstormed on your own, and it's the different principles of design.
To recap, today we talked about what artist block is, and I gave you access to a video that gives you the 8 methods to get past artist block. You created your own idea using the animal, place, and action method. We talked about what a hand sketch is, and you created at least 10 thumbnail sketches depicting your idea. Last, you took your favorite of those 10 thumbnail sketches and you converted one into a hand sketch to show greater detail.
My artists, I cannot wait to see your thumbnails and your hand sketch. Until next time, I'm Mr. Morris. Have a great day.